Welcome back to The One in Discussion, our third episode. I am the one, Richard Rutkowski, and today we are in discussion with Jim Durrell. Jim has run the gamut in Ottawa, from being the first president of the Ottawa Senators to our 53rd mayor of Ottawa. Aside from that, he's served on numerous charitable foundations, chaired various boards, including the Ottawa Police Services Board, the Ottawa International Airport, Ottawa Convention Center, and in 2013 was presented with the Ottawa Chamber of Commerce inaugural Lifetime Achievement Award, given the Queen Elizabeth II Diamond Jubilee Medal, and received the Order of Canada in 2013. This is truly a pleasure. Jim, thanks for joining the discussion.
Always nice to be here, Rich.
How are you on this amazing, wonderful day in Ottawa today?
Top drawer. Beautiful. It's sunny outside. Thursday, my second favorite day of the week. Friday is my favorite. And so, no, I'm excellent. I've had a great day so far. Started early this morning. And
yeah, you mentioned already meetings. And
everything. So I've been going.
Well, like I said, I'm just honored to have you here. And I sent you over some questions. We'll start with, where are you now? And how do you spend your time?
Well, I'm at 292 Somerset West at Engel Völkers. No, I'm retired. I retired from my ownership at Capital Dodge. And I'm still involved in the community. I'm very fortunate, Rich. I got a great group of friends, a great group of business associates, past and present. So I'm always on the go. I just left. I was on the Board of Governors at Carleton up until recently, and I'm still chairman of Hydro Ottawa, and that keeps me going. But between tennis, golf, fitness, not easy being old, you know. You got to work hard at it.
Well, I'm telling you, Jim, I'm pegging you at around 50, 55.
Yeah,
so.
Sure, yeah, U.S., yeah.
With a plus HST,
yeah.
of course, plus HST. What motivates you, my friend? What motivates you every day? What is it about life that, over 55, it's kind of what the drive of these interviews are?
I have to say that, and I was instilled at a very young age by my parents. I'm driven by a simple thing that the world should be a better place because I've been here. And it's something that it's something I work instinctively at. It's there. It's a part of my DNA. So when I get up in the course of a day, if I can help somebody do something, I try and mentor a bunch of people, talk on leadership where I can. If I can make somebody better that day, then I've had a good day. It's pretty simple.
Well, you made my day better just by being here, Jim.
Yeah.
Your number one life experience in Ottawa. Can you pick one, or maybe section it out? Maybe later in life or earlier in life.
Being elected mayor, because it was the most foundational change in my life. I moved here in 1976, and 9 years later was elected the mayor. And that was a huge thing in my life, for my family, for my wife. And what it did was really propelled me forward into a whole series of things that, as a young man, I would never have imagined. You kind of sit there and I often think of what my grandfather, who was born and raised in Ottawa, would have said if his grandson was elected mayor. Yeah, I think it's kind of
What would
cool.
he said?
Well, I don't know what he would have said, because regrettably he died as a young man. He was a railroader, and Dad was a young man, and then Dad went off to World War II and was in the Navy, and so I only know him through my father.
Oh, the Canadian Navy?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My father served as well. Polish, though.
Yeah.
Polish infantry. Definitely, I personally, as a sports fan, during your time as mayor, the Ottawa Senators being awarded to the city of Ottawa, I cannot even imagine. Maybe you can tell us a little bit, maybe some funny stories along the way, maybe when you thought you had it, you didn't have it, and when you got that call 5 minutes after they told you no, or...
Well, it's funny, you know, when it all started, I remember Bruce Firestone. I was mayor at the time, obviously. And Bruce phoned me in, it would have been 87 or 88, said he wanted to do this. And I remember thinking, you know, first of all, I admire Bruce's persistence, and he was remarkable in pushing this thing. But Bruce wasn't a well-known figure or personality in Ottawa. And I remember thinking, like, you got 2 chances of doing this, 0 and none. But I was intrigued with it, and I kind of listened a bit and didn't make any commitments one way or the other, because when you get out in front on something, whether you think it's right or not, or good or not, if you haven't done all your homework, you can be left out there high and dry. And the long and the short of it was, Rich, that he persisted, and then sure enough in 89 we announced that we were going to try and bring a franchise. And he and Cyril and Randy and a few others had done a lot of work. And John Ziegler, he wanted to go to the NHL and do a big show in '89. And Ziegler was then president of the NHL. Now they call them commissioners. But John Ziegler was president of the NHL back then. And one day my assistant comes in. She said, "There's a Mr. Ziegler on the phone. He says he's the president of the NHL and he wants to talk to you." I said, "Fine." And I had talked to John a couple of times earlier. So John says, "Mayor," he said, "I know that Bruce Firestone wants to bring a big group down here and create a hoopla, but he said, we're not prepared to expand until at least next year at the earliest, and I don't want him here." And I said, "Well, what are you phoning me for?" He said, "Because I know he'll listen to you, and I've already told him no, and I'm not sure Bruce is listening." Anyway, one thing led to the other, and the next year, of course, we went down. There were so few people that ever believed we would win this franchise. I mean, all my senior advisors and staff tried to talk me out of it. They said, "You're going to wear this thing, you haven't got a hope in hell." But in my heart of hearts, I truly believed we had something. And that previous year, in 1990, all the governors of the NHL, about 10 to 12 of the important governors, came through Ottawa, and I would host each one in my office. And back then my office was probably one of the largest offices in Ottawa. It was built by Charlotte Whitten, who decided that this would, and it was an impressive place. When people walked in, it didn't matter how rich they were or who they were, you could always tell it was a little stop and a breath taken. So I brought all the governors in, got to know them, we had a great chit chat and did all the usual things that you have to do. But when we got there, I really felt good about it, and we had a strong team. Our presentations went well, and a little while ago, when the city was announced at 1 million people, Jim Watson brought in Larry O'Brien, myself, Jackie Holzman, and Bob Shirelli, and he brought us in with our spouses for a lunch, just to recognize. It was a very classy
I saw the
thing.
picture. I saw the picture.
Yeah, a classy thing to do, quite frankly. And we had a wonderful, wonderful lunch and a great conversation. And Jim said, "What was the most important thing that happened in each?" And he asked each one of us. And I said, "Well, without a shadow of a doubt, winning the Ottawa Senators, because the change for Ottawa was profound. I don't care if you were a hockey fan or not. From an entertainment perspective, I mean, we've had groups here for now almost 30 years that we would never have got here because they transitioned from big outdoor shows to big indoor shows. It was just a huge change, and it kind of gave the youth of today. I remember, when we won the franchise, we would always say that the kids today, 25 years from now, will be Senator fans. They were all
generation
fans
after generation.
And I'm watching it happen and unfold, and it's a great look back. But it also, to me, was likely getting 416 Highway 416 built. There's lots of things that every mayor does that he or she is proud of, but I would say that the one thing, whether you were a sports fan or not, that had the greatest effect on Ottawa was playing an integral part of winning that franchise.
I believe in many ways put it on the map.
Yeah,
Even though
yeah.
we're the capital city, the
Yeah.
capital city is looked at from a political perspective. When you bring National Hockey League into any city for that matter, you're all automatically you're worldwide known.
Yep. Yep. Oh, yeah.
And,
No
and the
question.
recognition is much different. I remember at that time, so for full disclosure, I grew up in Dundas, Ontario. I've been
Yes,
30 years
yeah.
there and 30
Tim
years
Hortons,
here.
Ron Joyce.
Yep.
I remember them well.
Yep. Jeff Haino, my friend's father, best friend from high school, who I still talk to all the time, owns the plaza where the third Tim Hortons was. And he still owns it and still owns the plaza, and they still want to have their shop there. And it's hilarious. Yeah, Ron Joyce, and yeah, you probably recall the name of Haino, that's for sure.
Yeah, I sure do.
Yeah, so we, at that time when Ottawa won, Hamilton was one of the bidders at the same time.
Well, and we always think back, it was the day in retrospect that we ended up winning the franchise. And I got a call from Bruce saying, come on up to my suite, we're going to have a meeting. So I went up and there was the usual crew there, Randy, Cyril, myself, Gary was there, our accountant, and I think that was about it. We just all, so Bruce said, I have a plan. I thought, well, this is going to be good. And we had, and damned if I can remember his name, he was the Attorney General that was fired by Richard Nixon in the United States. He was the Attorney General, smart guy. And I should Google it because it's just age now. My memory is going.
I'll insert it in. We'll figure out who it is.
Figured out who, yeah.
And we'll put that name in.
Was he ever a smart guy? And he was a nice guy. He was very, you could tell, a very wealthy, prominent American. And Bruce, to his credit, brought him in because most of the teams voting were all American. And they all knew who this guy was, and he was a player. Anyway, Bruce said the night before we'd all been to Jerry Jacobs' house. Jerry owned the Boston Bruins and still does the Jacobs family. And Jerry was a fabulously wealthy individual, as most of these guys were back then. And so we made it kind of a political convention. I took 6 teams, Randy took 6 teams, Cyril took 6 teams, because we knew a couple were already supporting us, so we didn't bother. And we all went out and came back at the end. And I said, you know, after we got our information together, I said, we got enough votes to win this thing. And anyway, Bruce says, so Cyril's going to invite Ron Joyce up here to the room. And we're going to tell Ron that we have enough votes to win. And Ron, we're going to ask him to support our bid. And we should go forward from there, assuming there's a team from Canada. And I remember saying to Bruce, I said, Bruce, they'll burn every goddamn Tim Hortons store down within 500 miles of Hamilton. I said, Ron Joyce isn't going to. And Ron Joyce was a very wealthy man and a very influential guy, as you know, and tough. I always liked Ron. I had a great deal of respect for him. So Cyril, you know, we agreed that in the end, the best thing would be to have Ron up and say, look, if we get knocked out first, we'll jump instantly on your bandwagon, you do vice versa. And Cyril phones Ron Joyce, and Ron says, I'm not coming to your suite, you come to my suite. So we all trucked down to Ron Joyce's suite, like a bunch of dogs heading down the stairs.
Yeah, well, you got to do what you got to do.
And it was like a Sadie Hawkins dance. So, Ron had a major league suite it was at the Breakers in West Palm. Huge room, it was almost a dance hall, as I recall, a large room. And there were chairs all the way around, so we all sat like a bunch of school kids waiting for somebody to ask us to dance around the board. And anyway, Bruce started off with, Ron, it's nice you to host us, and he said, we have more votes than you, and we'd like you to support us and this and that. And Ron said, well, you know, thank you, Bruce, but we've done our homework too, and we have more votes than you, and we want you to support us. So it was, you know, anyway, it went back and forth, and we all agreed in the end that we would support whoever came out first. And
Makes sense.
Yeah, I always remember that.
It's significant. It's significant. And thank you on behalf of all Ottawa Senators and hockey fans and for your efforts in that regard. We have an election coming up, Jim.
We do. And they're
City
damn
mayor.
important. Yes, they are very important to
City
us.
mayor. Doug Ford, our premier.
Recognize the name?
You recognize?
Yeah, recognize that name.
Wants to give additional powers
Mm-hmm.
to the mayors
Mm-hmm.
in regards to housing, maybe to facilitate moving things along a little quicker than normal,
Mm-hmm.
which I have no issue with. I think we've always stalled at the city
Mhm.
and just so much red tape and employees changing and files changing hands. How do you feel about that?
I am 100% in favor of the strong mayor proposal. And I know I'm watching all the candidates saying, oh, no, we don't want that, because it's misrepresented by the media, quite frankly. And Jim Watson is a strong mayor, even though he says we don't need it.
Right,
I was a
exactly.
strong mayor. And a strong mayor has control of council. And you do it through cajoling, working with, being democratic, being nice, give and take, and in the end, threatening if you had to do it, just to make sure you got your votes lined up. And otherwise, the council would just, you'd be the tail and the council would be the dog, and they just whip you around like nothing, you know? So for a mayor to be effective, I believe he or she should have those powers. Now, if they don't want to use them, fill your boots. That's your prerogative. The strong mayor proposal does not require the mayor to do those things. It's there, and
Yeah, and then there's
yeah.
also the option for a veto, 2/3 of the majority of
Yeah.
council.
Yeah.
But I think on municipal politics, which I was part of for a few years myself, I think it's tough if municipal politics tends to lean a little bit more to the left in who gets elected in general by the whole number of the thing. And it's tough if you're a fiscal conservative being a councillor or even a mayor for that. We had Larry O'Brien in here. It was tough for him to get anything done. I can see it helping in those situations where you bring in a new approach. Maybe not everybody agrees with that approach, and you'll never get agreement on council because just from political leanings. So my opinion on this is I think it's a good thing as well.
Well, sure it is. And the mayor is the only person, as we know, elected at large by the whole city. And so if the city at large looks at the mayor of the day and says, we're not happy with you, have a nice life, you're gone. And so it's not uncommon that mayors have been defeated and the whole council is reelected, because the mayor is easier to focus on.
Yeah.
So we have a friend that happened to pretty well. So
I've got to ask you, your link's still on the chain, the mayor's chain? Because Jackie destroyed it in the car.
she tried to yeah, it's still there.
You still got
Mine's
it?
a little scratched though.
Yours is scratched.
I said to Watson,
We're gonna look into that.
I want this buffed up a little bit.
We got to get that buffed up.
Yeah.
So quite a list of candidates. From Shirelli to Kenny to Sutcliffe to McGuire. Seems like a lot of names on that list.
Always is.
The front runners, I believe, at this time are McKinney and Sutcliffe. How do you feel about those two?
Well,
If you
full disclosure, I don't mind. I signed Mark Sutcliffe's nomination papers. So, and I'm his honorary co-chair of his campaign. So try and guess where my support is going to be.
I can't see it. It's a little hard to figure out here.
I don't want to waffle alley on this stuff, I'm trying to, yeah. No, this is, and it's not a dispersion on the other candidates. I just think Mark is the best candidate, quite frankly. And long after I left the mayor's job, I have spent a lot of time trying to work with councils and mayors to keep the city strong and going, and I think Mark would do a wonderful job.
I think he's got my support as well. I don't see anybody else on the list that I believe can do the job.
No.
In life right now, in the world, we're having a lot of, this is a passionate subject that I talk about all the time with as many people as I can, and it lends to informing the youth of the dangers of socialism and various aspects of the world that are changing in front of our eyes due to lack of first-hand knowledge or being taught about the experiences of the past from our veterans, from us. From us. You know, my concern right now in the world is that the younger generations don't have a clue in many respects to really what is socialism, what is communism, and how it takes hold and where it leads us to. We had great conversation with Larry and Jackie about this, and what do you say to our friends out there that are plus 55? How do we communicate to them so they can get to their children, get to the younger generations, and caution them about all this easy stuff and the socialist agendas that are going on out there and changing the world that we live in many respects?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and there's not a simple answer. I look at...
What's your take on it?
Yeah, oh no, but I look, you know, you came from Poland and your parents, and we know what's happened there over the years. And so anybody who's ever fought communism or socialism or been involved knows right away that it's not a good thing. You know, I'll go back, I'm going to start with when I was about 15, 16 years old. I was coming home from high school one day, and the NDP had been formed. They used to be in Saskatchewan, the Socialist Credit Party or something.
Social Credit Party or something, yeah.
So they were now called the New Democratic Party. I was a classic 15, 16. I didn't know anything. I'd never heard of them. Most 15, 16-year-olds have no concept. They wouldn't, half of them don't know who the mayor is. Probably 40% couldn't name the prime minister. It's amazing, you know. But I go back, and probably not that many, because with social media there's more exposure. But I look back then, how naive. Anyway, these 7 or 8 young men and women were on a corner. And I walked along, and they started talking about their programs, the NDP, and what they stood for. And I remember looking, thinking, this is great. So I said, thank you very much.
Yeah, at that age, they're going to send you a check. They're going to give you...
I said, I had no idea. But they were nice, they were engaging. And I remember looking and thinking, well, you look at socialism platforms, I mean, they're lovely. It's just they don't work. Anyway, I went home and I said, Dad, I think I've found a political party I could be really happy with. And I showed it to him, and he just grabbed it and ripped it up. He said, son, you want nothing to do with this. And I always remember that. Well, I now have 2 grandchildren. My wife and I do. One is basically almost 16, the other 14. And it's fascinating because you watch your own kids grow up, but they grew through an era of social media appearing and became comfortable with it. It's easy to disparage the youth of today with the teaching. But when I look at, I'll just look at my 2 grandkids, because I can't speak on behalf of everybody's, obviously, nor would I try. But the hope that they give me that the world will be a better place. And they're not all cut up, they're idealistic. You should be idealistic when you're young. You know, I think it's an essential part of growing up from youth to young adult to full maturity is hope.
Right.
And it's aspirational. You haven't had enough life experiences to ever be able to draw and make any definitive statement. So you kind of live every day, and these things unfold. And do I worry as I watch governments take more and more control of our personal lives? Yeah, I do. I'm not happy about that. That's not the youth of today doing that.
Is it the government? Is it the government though, or is it government combined with, the social media giants that are controlling the free speech? And Larry's talking about, the freedom of democracy, and he's got a whole concept on democracy for today. But really, who has the power out there? Is it the politicians, or is it the people that control the media?
Yes.
The politicians?
Yes.
You put it in their hands.
Oh, I sure do. Yeah. In the end, I always say, Donald Trump was excluded from Twitter. Well, frankly, when you spew hate and you spew all the stuff and trying to overthrow a country, this will elicit. I don't go on social media, so they'll just rip me a new one. I know on this one. I have no issue. And I know who do you choose? There's way too much made out of this by the far right. The far right, and one of the things in my almost 76 years in this earth, Rich, I've learned is any form of fundamentalism is bad. I don't care if you're a Christian, you're a Jew, you're a Muslim. When you get way out there on the right, okay, it ain't a good thing.
Or the left, for that matter.
Well, that was my other point. Yeah. You get fundamentalism on the left, and extremes of those sorts are always bad. And it doesn't matter what your religion is, what your race is, when you get that far out on those edges, left or right, it's not a very good picture, okay? And so I kind of move along, and that's where social media will take you out to the fundamentalist right and out to the fundamentalist left. Most of it with 98% lies, unfactual BS and all the rest, which is why I'm not on social media. But having said
Bless you. Well, you don't get digital handshakes, do you? Those, I had a long chat with Larry about
that. But in the center, there's a lot of room for movement. And we get caught up in all these ideologies at times of conservative. A cousin of my wife's, who's a wonderful, brilliant, smart businessman and lawyer, was a red Tory. And as I always said to him, "You're a red Tory." I said, "That's all it is, a right-wing liberal in disguise." I said, "Oh, no," and he went on about the ideology. I said, "That's all BS." I said, "You couldn't have got elected where you were, or had the influence, because Bill Davis was in power back then and all that, right, unless you were conservative." Yep. So you became a conservative by choice, and you rationalized it by being, with a social conscience, a red Tory. And that's, as we know today, everybody tries to buttonhole you're in some particular thing. It's all a crock.
Just a crock.
It's a crock, much of it. You get a strong leader, whether they're a liberal or a conservative. I always exclude the NDP because they have no business experience, and it is fundamental socialism. Yeah, it
is, and it's amazing how many people don't realize that. Still to this day, they just don't. Yep. My dad, my uncle, the entire family, it's all the same. It's craziness.
Greatest prime minister the country had ever was Brian Mulroney, and he brought in GST, brought in free trade. He got things done, and you can see prime ministers that get things done. And we know prime ministers that don't get things done. And, there's one today that was going to plant 2 billion trees 7 years ago, and I think 3 have been planted.
2 billion trees?
2 billion trees.
So we're talking about the Honorable Mr. Trudeau, correct? Was he going to plant 2 billion trees?
2 billion trees.
Was that through the foundation?
Through the Canadian government. You and I were going to.
Oh, no, the foundation that is, I don't know.
I don't know.
You don't know?
And I would love if 2 billion trees were planted, quite frankly. That'd be a wonderful thing. But this sheer nonsense. So
we need a lot of summer jobs for students.
Yeah,
planting the trees. I'm curious. I've always wondered. You received the Order of Canada, part of the group. What's that like? What is like? We all hear this. I think a lot of us out there might be curious about this. We hear this individual has the Order of Canada. This one has the. What's it like? What does it actually entail? Obviously, your achievements, your past, the nomination.
Well,
what is that?
I nominated 4 people before I was put in.
Okay.
I was 0 for 4. And I got a call. Sam, my wife, she phoned me. She said, Governor General office has phoned you. I said, well, give me the number, I'll phone them back. I thought, I got this person in. You know, like, and it's not, there's no political influence, trust me. There is no who you know, what you know. You just, you know, you put an application in with why you think this person should be there. Mm-hmm. So I thought, great, they're being accepted or they're doing more interviewing. So I phone and the lady answers the phone and passes me along to someone else. And they said, well, Mr. Durrell, it's our honor to tell you that you have been appointed as a member of the Order of Canada. Well, I was speechless. Honestly, I was.
Because you were nominated.
I said, I thought you were calling me to tell me that the person and I was absolutely, you know, I don't think, well, I can't underestimate the honor that it is to be honored by your country in this way. I wear this, I wear it with pride.
The pin.
It's a snowflake, and I wear it every day with a jacket. I mean, I wouldn't put it on a t-shirt, but anytime I have a jacket or a suit on, I wear it very, very proudly.
So everybody, like, one of my favorite bands, Rush, you know, Geddy Lee, Alex Lifeson, all those guys, they got the Order of Canada. They're actually, we do a little bit with their music in the background. Shh, don't tell anybody. But what, do you guys get together? Is there a party? Is it a one-off? You get pinned and, okay, that's enough.
There's a handshake, eh?
Okay.
I'm joking.
Hey, stop talking. Okay, we're not going down that path. I'm going to have to get my
Secret
brother Vince involved in this again.
You have to be, there's no club. As a matter of fact,
well, there must be some gatherings. Do you guys like?
There's not really. No. David Johnson, who is, I think, probably the greatest Governor General we've had in a long, long time. David is still an incredible man. He brought a lot of us together to talk about the future of Canada one time at Rideau Hall, but no, really, there isn't, Rich. And
from a marketing background, I see a huge charitable dinner of some sorts, getting all the Order of Canada members together and bringing them in for one major fundraiser for sick kids, or it would be somebody.
Quite frankly, you'll often see, when you see boards or you'll see names in papers, you'll often see CM beside it. They're all members of the Order of Canada. You don't get the Order of Canada,
CM, you said?
CM, yeah.
Canadian.
Is the initial. So that's the initial for the Medal of Canada, okay?
Canada Medal? Canadian Medal?
Yeah. So, and you'll see that often with individuals in the paper. I proudly use it all the time. You ever look at an email from me to you, I always have CM. And because it's an honor that very, 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 very few people ever get. And I'm still to this day flabbergasted. It's been almost 10 years since I got the call, and I look and think, why me?
Okay. So we all understand. You showed up. You got your recognition.
Yeah. They have a lovely dinner that night.
You're on some list or board, I presume, somewhere?
They have a lunch. They have a lovely luncheon. Okay. And then that night, they have a black tie affair. Mm-hmm. And it's a lovely dinner and fun, and you're allowed to bring 4 people to your installation, and there's generally, each one is maybe 40, 50 people. Could be a little less, a little more, depending on if they're catching up names of people who couldn't attend the previous one. There's 2 a year normally.
Okay.
And so you're allowed to have 4 people with you. So they're in the audience and all that, but the nighttime, and so the reception at noon includes all your friends, or your your 4 people, and you got them all. So you got quite a crowd. And you get your picture taken again with the Governor General, because they call you up to the front. And I don't get nervous very often, Rich, but I'll tell you, when I was, they call your name and you walk up to the front, you acknowledge the Governor General, and you stand there, and then
Who was the Governor General at that time?
David Johnson.
Okay.
And they read the proclamation as to why you're receiving this honor.
Okay.
And then you step over, and the Governor General pins you and puts it on. You shake your hands, get your official photograph, which I still have very proudly in my desk.
Really?
You've had a good interview. You don't need any more crap. Close it up. Right, Allie? Yeah. No,
I'm just going to use that. We're going to use that. All right, so I'm going to ask you that question. This kind of throws me for a loop. So Jim, in closing, since we cannot find a funny story or a gaffe at this moment in time,
very deadpan individual.
other than just being here,
boring, deadpan.
maybe we'll take a different path.
Okay.
What's your advice as a mentor to the younger generation for our future and to protect our future and our way of life?
So, to me, Rich, when we were born in Canada, we won the lottery in life, okay? And at times you don't recognize that. You know, it's like you're entitled to your entitlements. This is the country we live in. We know nothing else but. People who've come from other countries, your mom and dad coming from Poland, etc., and and all of these things with different life experience. But Canada is not because I'm a proud Canadian, but it's still, and I've been blessed. I've traveled all over the world. Every time when that plane lands back in Canada, I always feel better about it. And the job of the youth today was the same as when you were young and I was young, is to preserve the greatness of our country, okay? And the world's changing greatly. The Canada that I grew up in the 40s and 50s, the war was just over, there was no social media. It was a very different world. And so the challenge for you and I as older people, if I can go one step sideways, is we keep trying to instill in the youth today our values when we were young. And that was no different than our parents trying to install in us when we were very young all their values. We took the things that were important from them. And the other problem that you have in youth today is the number of separations and divorces that have taken place. In our generation, they were rare.
Yes.
You always had your mother and father there. Mom stayed home, dad worked. Well, today, that's not the case, and it hasn't been for a long time. Mom works, dad works, kids go have daycare, they got all this stuff, and parenting has changed. So having put all of those, what I would call challenges or changes, I still think when I talk to young people, that they recognize how lucky they were to be born and raised in Canada. And never take it for granted. You're all going to take different routes. Some are going to be great realtors, some will be politicians, some will be athletes, some will be professors and teachers. Many will be entrepreneurs and business people, and each one will in their own way shape something that, to use my father's words, will make the world a better place because you were here. So, not profound, but that's...
I like it.
Works.
Be proud you're in Canada.
Oh, you won.
Be proud
we won
you were
first,
born here.
We won first prize in the lottery of life, trust me.
You heard it from Mr. Durrell. You won the lottery. Every youth, every person in Canada was born here. You won the lottery. And I would agree. It is an amazing country. We have changes, we have differences.
Challenges.
But in the end, we all have to come together to protect it.
Yep.
I think in every respect. Jim, I really thank you for your time here today.
It's great. I got to get home and walk the dog. So
you're going to go walk the dog?
I'll get home and walk my dog.
Okay.
Because my dog won't see this video.
Okay, cut. We can't get this
That's
going.
it, Allie. I got to get that dog needs to
See you next time on the One in Discussion with Richard Brinkley, the Senior VP of Engel Völkers Canada. Talk to you soon. Look forward to it. Bye.